I found out my best friend was secretly ruining my life. What I did next, nobody saw coming. I never thought I'd be the type to seek revenge. I always figured I was too level-headed, too forgiving, to stoop that low. But when someone takes everything you care about and burns it to the ground, you start to realize revenge isn't about stupidity, it's about survival. This story starts about 2 years ago, when my life felt perfect. I had a thriving career, a happy relationship with my fiancée, Nicole, and a tight-knit group of friends. At the center of it all was Jake, my best friend since college. He was the kind of guy who lit up a room, a bit cocky, sure, but always fun to be around. Or so I thought. I didn't realize Jake was sabotaging me behind my back until it was almost too late. The first crack in the facade came when Nicole started acting distant. At first, I chalked it up to stress. She was working long hours and planning our wedding at the same time. But then she started avoiding me, giving me excuses about needing space. One night, I overheard her on the phone. She sounded upset, like she was arguing with someone. When I asked her who it was, she brushed it off, saying it was just work drama. But something about the way she avoided eye contact made my stomach churn. A week later, Jake pulled me aside at a party. "Hey man," he said, his tone serious. "Can I be honest with you?" "Of course," I replied, confused by the sudden change in his demeanor. "It's Nicole," he said, lowering his voice. "I don't think she's being faithful to you." My heart stopped. "What are you talking about?" Jake sighed, looking almost apologetic. "I wasn't going to say anything, but I saw her with another guy last week. They looked close." "I'm sorry, man. I thought you deserved to know." His words hit me like a sledgehammer. I felt betrayed, but more than that, I felt stupid. Had I been so blind? From that point on, everything spiraled. Nicole and I fought constantly. Every time I confronted her about Jake's accusations, she denied them, claiming she'd never cheated and didn't even know the guy Jake supposedly saw her with. "I don't understand why you're listening to him over me," she said one night, tears streaming down her face. "I thought we were supposed to trust each other." Her words cut deep, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. And then, out of nowhere, Jake started distancing himself. He stopped answering my calls, stopped inviting me out with the group. It felt like I was losing him and Nicole at the same time. And then the final blow came. I got a call from my boss telling me I'd been passed over for a promotion. Apparently, someone had anonymously reported that I was untrustworthy and had been leaking company secrets. I didn't leak anything, but someone clearly wanted it to look like I had. At first, I thought Nicole might have been involved. Maybe she was trying to sabotage me out of anger. But then one night, I overheard Jake talking to another friend at a bar. "Yeah, I told him she was cheating," he said, laughing. "It was the easiest way to plant doubt. Now she doesn't even want to be around him." My blood ran cold. I'd trusted Jake with everything, my insecurities, my hopes for the future, my deepest secrets, and he'd used all of it against me. Over the next few weeks, I pieced together the rest of the puzzle. Jake had been feeding Nicole lies about me, telling her I was paranoid and controlling. He'd also been spreading rumors at work, turning colleagues against me, and as for my promotion, turns out Jake had applied for the same position. It all made sense now. Jake didn't just want to hurt me, he wanted to replace me. I didn't confront Jake right away. I knew I had to be smarter than that. If he wanted to play games, I'd play too, except I'd make sure he lost. The first step was rebuilding trust with Nicole. I told her everything I'd overheard, everything I'd discovered. At first, she was skeptical, but once I showed her proof text Jake had sent me, subtly undermining her character, she started to believe me. "Oh my God," she whispered, her face pale. "I thought I was going crazy. He made me think you were the problem." The second step was gathering evidence at work. I reached out to a few colleagues, subtly asking about the rumors. One coworker admitted Jake had been the one spreading them, claiming he was just looking out for the company. By the end of the month, I had a pile of evidence, a trail of Jake's lies that was impossible to deny. This is where things get interesting. Instead of confronting Jake directly, I decided to let him implode on his own. I anonymously leaked his messages and rumors to HR, framing it as a concern for the company's integrity. Then, I sent copies of those same messages to our mutual friends, including the ones he'd been manipulating. The fallout was glorious. Jake was called into a meeting with HR, where they confronted him about his behavior. Our friends started ghosting him, realizing he'd been using them for his own agenda. And the cherry on top, Nicole and I showed up to his birthday party, hand in hand, with smiles that screamed, "You didn't win!" Jake tried to play it off, but I could see the panic in his eyes. He knew his perfect little game was falling apart, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. It's been 6 months since everything went down, and Jake is officially out of my life. He lost his job, most of his friends, and any chance at rebuilding his reputation. Nicole and I, stronger than ever, we've moved past the drama and are focusing on our future together. Do I feel guilty about what I did? Not even a little. Jake chose to destroy me, and all I did was return the favor. If anything, I wish I'd acted sooner. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you thought you could trust, just know this: you don't have to take it lying down. Sometimes, the best way to heal is to remind people that actions have consequences. Jake's downfall was a masterpiece of its own making. The evidence I'd leaked to HR wasn't just damaging, it was damning. The texts I'd gathered showed he'd not only sabotaged me, but had also badmouthed several other colleagues to climb the corporate ladder. HR didn't just reprimand him, they terminated him effective immediately. He tried to fight it, of course. Jake always had an inflated sense of his own importance. But when he realized the weight of the evidence against him, he packed up his desk and left without another word. Word spread quickly among our mutual friends. At first, some of them tried to defend him, saying he made a mistake or was going through something. But when I showed them the full extent of his manipulation, the messages, the lies, the intentional sabotage, they couldn't look past it. One by one, they cut ties. Jake went from being the center of every social event to a ghost. No one invited him out anymore. No one returned his calls. Even the people he'd thought were loyal to him started distancing themselves. It was poetic justice, watching him realize how alone he'd become. With Jake out of the picture, Nicole and I began to rebuild our relationship. It wasn't easy. Trust doesn't come back overnight, but we both knew we wanted to make it work. "I'm sorry I ever doubted you," she said one evening as we sat on the couch, a bottle of wine between us. "He let his lies get to me, and I should have trusted you." "It's not your fault," I replied. "He was good at what he did. Too good." Slowly but surely, we started to find our rhythm again. We went to couples therapy, took long walks to talk through our feelings, and made a point to prioritize each other over everything else. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. At work, things also started looking up. With Jake gone, the toxicity in the office dissipated. My boss even pulled me aside to apologize for believing the rumors, and though it didn't erase the damage, it felt like a step in the right direction. While my life was finally finding stability, Jake's was falling apart. After losing his job, he struggled to find another one. Her, from his old company, didn't mince words when other employers called for references. His reputation as a manipulative opportunist followed him everywhere he went. Dan, one of our mutual friends, mentioned running into Jake at a bar one night. "He looked rough, man," Dan said. "Like he hasn't slept in weeks. He tried to talk to me, but I just couldn't. Not after everything. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Just when I thought things were finally settling down, I got a call from an unknown number. At first, I ignored it. Spam calls were nothing new. But when the same number called 3 more times in an hour, I finally picked up. "Hello?" There was silence on the other end at first, then a deep sigh. "It's Jake." I nearly hung up right there. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice cold. "I need to talk to you," he said, his tone shaky. "In person, please." Why would I ever agree to that? Because I need to apologize for everything. Part of me wanted to laugh. An apology after everything he'd done? But another part of me, the part that still remembered the friend I'd once had, was curious. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him the next day at a diner we used to frequent in college. When I walked in, I barely recognized him. He looked gaunt, his hair disheveled, his clothes wrinkled like he hadn't cared enough to iron them. "Thanks for coming," he said as I sat down across from him. "Make it quick," I replied. Jake launched into a long-winded apology, admitting to everything, manipulating Nicole, spreading lies at work, even deliberately sabotaging me for the promotion. "I was jealous," he said finally, his voice breaking. "You had everything I wanted. The career, the fiancé, the respect. And instead of being happy for you, I ruined it." His words should felt satisfying, but they didn't. They felt hollow, like he was saying them for his own benefit, not mine. "What do you want from me, Jake?" I asked. "Forgiveness? Closure?" "I don't know," he admitted. I just needed you to know I'm sorry." I stared at him for a long moment, weighing my response. "I appreciate the apology," I said finally, "but it doesn't change what you did. And it doesn't mean I want you back in my life." Jake nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I understand." As I walked out of the diner, I felt a strange sense of relief, not because I forgave him, but because I realized I didn't need to. Jake was no longer my problem. It's been a year since that conversation, and life has never been better. Nicole and I are married now, our relationship's stronger than ever. I've been promoted to a leadership position at work, where I'm building a team that values trust and collaboration. As for Jake, I haven't heard from him since that day at the diner, and I hope I never do. Some bridges are meant to stay burned. This whole experience taught me a lot about people, about trust, and about myself. Revenge might not be the healthiest way to cope, but sometimes it's the only way to take back your power. And in the end, that's exactly what I did. I thought I had moved on, thought I had closed that chapter in my life, but some wounds don't heal as quickly as you'd like. For months after my final conversation with Jake, I would catch myself glancing at my phone, half expecting another desperate message from him. When I walked into work, I sometimes felt the phantom weight of his presence, like he was still lurking in the office, scheming. And at night, I dreamt about our old friendship before everything turned to ash. Nicole noted. "You still think about him, don't you?" she asked one evening as we sat on the couch. I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Not because I miss him, just because of everything, how it all fell apart." "You did what you had to do," she reminded me gently. "You didn't ruin his life, he did. All you did was expose what was already there." I nodded, but deep down, I wondered, would Jake ever truly disappear from my life? Or would he always haunt the edges of my memory? 6 months passed, then a year, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe. Until I saw him. It was a random Saturday afternoon. Nicole and I were walking downtown, checking out a new farmer's market when I spotted someone sitting alone at a cafe patio. His hair was longer, his face thinner, but I knew immediately who it was. Jake. He looked defeated. There was no trace of the arrogant confidence he used to carry. His shoulders slumped forward. His eyes stared blankly at his coffee cup. If I hadn't known better, I would have thought he was just another stranger lost in thought. Nicole followed my gaze and sighed. "Do you want to leave?" I shook my head. "No, dished, but let's just keep walking." I didn't stop. I didn't speak. I didn't acknowledge him. But just as we passed, I saw him look up, and for a fraction of a second, his eyes met mine. There was recognition. There was regret. But most of all, there was resignation. He didn't call out to me. He didn't chase me down. He simply let me go. And that was when I knew this time, for really, was finally gone. Part 13. Closure isn't something that happens overnight. It's not a single moment, a single realization. It's a process, a slow, painful, necessary unraveling of everything that hurt you. Jake had taken so much from me, but he had also taught me things I never would have learned otherwise. I understood betrayal in ways I never wanted to, but I also understood resilience, strength, and the importance of cutting out poison before it spread. Nicole and I eventually moved to a different city. A fresh start, a new beginning. Sometimes I still think about Jake, about how different things could have been if he had just chosen honesty over deceit. But those thoughts don't weigh me down anymore. They're just echoes. And echoes always fade with time. Final update. You never fully forget, but you do move on. If you've read this far, Thank you for listening. If you've ever been betrayed, I hope you find the strength to take back control of your life. And if you ever seek revenge, let it be the kind that leaves you free, not chained to the past. Because in the end, nothing is more satisfying than truly moving forward. Let me know if you'd like further expansion or a different twist. I can add even more depth, another unexpected turn, or additional characters. Closure isn't something that happens overnight. It's not a single moment, a single realization. It's a process, a slow, painful, necessary unraveling of everything that hurt you. Jake had taken so much from me, but he had also taught me things I never would have learned otherwise. I understood betrayal in ways I never wanted to. But I also understood resilience, strength, and the importance of cutting out poison before it spreads. Nicole and I eventually moved to a different city, a fresh start, a new beginning. Sometimes, I still think about Jake, about how different things could have been if he had just chosen honesty over deceit. But those thoughts don't weigh me down anymore. They're just echoes, and echoes always fade with time. If you've read this far, thank you for listening. If you've ever been betrayed, I hope you find the strength to take back control of your life. And if you ever seek revenge, let it be the kind that leaves you free, not chained to the past. Because in the end, nothing is more satisfying than truly moving forward. Years passed. The weight of what had happened with Jake faded, but it never fully disappeared. It lingered in certain moments, when I heard his name in passing, when I met someone with a similar personality, when Nicole and I looked back on everything that had shaped us. We had moved to a new city, built a new life, and surrounded ourselves with people we could trust. But that trust was something I no longer gave freely. I analyzed conversations more closely, second-guessed people's intentions, and sometimes wondered if I'd ever truly be the same. One night, Nicole caught me staring at my phone, scrolling through old messages I'd never deleted. "You still think about it, don't you?" she asked gently. "Not like I used to," I admitted. "But yeah, sometimes." She placed a hand on mine. "You're not defined by what he did to you. You never were." And maybe that was true. Maybe moving forward wasn't about forgetting, it was about acknowledging that scars exist without letting them dictate your future. 3 years after cutting Jake out of my life, I got an email. At first I thought it was spam. The subject line just read, "I owe you the truth." And then I saw the sender, Jake. I stared at the screen for a long time before opening it. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I wouldn't if I were you, but after years of thinking about what I did, I need you to know I was sick. Not in the physical way, sick in the way that makes you destroy everything good in your life without realizing it until it's too late. I hurt you because I was jealous, because I thought the only way to be happy was to take your happiness away. But all I did was ruin my own life. I lost everything because of my own actions. No one trusts me anymore. And maybe I deserve that, but I needed you to know that I finally understand. And I'm sorry." I read the email 3 times before closing it. Nicole saw the look on my face. "What is it?" I exhaled slowly. "Jake." He apologized. She hesitated. "Do you believe him?" I thought about that for a long time. Did it matter if he was sincere? Did it matter if he'd finally realized what he'd done? In the end, I decided that no, it didn't. Some words come too late to change anything. I never responded. There's something freeing about letting go of anger. Not in the way people preach about forgiveness or moral righteousness, but in the quiet way that allows you to breathe again. For so long, Jake's betrayal had dictated so much of my life. The way I viewed friendship, trust, vulnerability. Even after he was gone, I carried the weight of it. But one day, I woke up and realized I wasn't thinking about him anymore. I wasn't waiting for closure. I wasn't holding on to resentment. I wasn't wondering what could have been. I just was. Nicole and I built a life full of new memories, new friendships, new experiences. If you like this video, please subscribe for more.